How would you like it if I always just treated you like a soft, delicate princess in the streets, but I treated you like my dirty sex slave slut in the bedroom?
Hmm. Yeah, do you have other kind of examples like that? I'm not sure even what to kind of categorize it as, but in a way that's similar to we talked about the king and queen relationship, where it's kind of like setting expectations or some kind of frame. Do you have other kind of examples? Not necessarily to do with sex, but relationship wise, maybe.
Well, yeah. So, um, as the man, you're always the leader, and I like to date younger women, younger, very feminine women. It's with all women who respect their man, and respect is what keeps a woman loyal. Respect is attraction for a woman, and she's going to ultimately respect a man who displays strong personality traits, strength in all things, right? Strength in terms of his body, strength in terms of his points of views, his opinions, how he expresses himself, how he holds his ground, how he doesn't, get flustered or, give in to people and, sees the world through his own eyes, his own perspectives. And when I'm in relationships, the women tend to adopt a lot of my points of view. I'll tend to just rant about a lot of stuff. I'll give my opinion on what I think about feminism or whatever the current, the large global thing that happened in the year 2020. I'll give my thoughts on that, or I'll give my thoughts on the mainstream media. And because I make such compelling arguments, I just like to rant. I mean, I have a YouTube channel called Beard Rants for a reason. I find them, and again, it's also my selection. I don't date combative women. I don't date women who have this, A-type alpha personality in the first place. But I'm always leading, and in relationships, it's almost, it's gonna sound weird to say, but it's almost like a daddy daughter type thing. Like she looks up to me, I'm the protector, I'm the provider. She looks up to me as a source of wisdom and knowledge, and I think that's one of the best. I mean, that's how I like it. I'm not saying some guys like it, this completely like 50-50 thing. I think that's bullshit. I think your woman should look up to you like with doggy dinner bowl eyes and just like, oh, like almost like she's like, beneath you, worshiping you. I think women like to worship men. I think they like to be naturally submissive to men. And that's how I always run the shit.
Interesting.
Did that answer your question, or did I just rant about something that it was irrelevant?
No, that's pretty similar. What's the kind of thing that crossed my mind there? Oh yeah, so your example you gave earlier, what I was meaning to ask, I realize now a bit more accurately, like unlocking her desires or understanding the kind of desires or things she would be into by asking the right questions instead of guessing. So, for example, I think Marcus talked about this before on a panel many months ago, where guys just, for example, go into sex and they just do their thing. And Michael also mentioned someone he knows would say, get into your favorite position. So, extracting the information essentially on what she is into, that's kind of what I wanted to ask. I'm very bad at explaining things and and putting. I'm the worst fucking wordsmith imaginable. Eric is the opposite. He's a beautiful fucking puts things into great words.
Nah, you get it out, Ice. I like the way you word things, man. You get through it.
It's a hot
There's
mess.
a
Yeah.
realness to your communication style. I'm like a little bit too particular sometimes. It's like loosen up, Eric. Just fucking speak. So
Yeah. Again, so like other questions. So I guess I don't know if I can answer that, but when I say that, oh, or how would you like if I treated you like a princess in the streets or like a dirty sex slave in the bedroom? I'm assuming she's going to be into that because I think out of I don't know, maybe I'm just taking a random guess, 350 to 450 women that I've had sex with, maybe 10 were not into a dominant guy. They didn't like to be dominated by a guy. So I don't know. The math on that is about 1%, I think, or a little bit less. So given 99% success rate with, women like to be, consensually raped, basically. I mean, just literally like abused and beat up. I mean, let's be honest. And that's just what they like. I don't know, bro. Maybe this is too risque for YouTube. Maybe you have to edit this out, but that's just what I
How do
found
you
that they
manage
like,
that
bro. They
risk
just like
though?
to be smacked around like that. I don't see it as a risk, bro. There's been times when, okay, here's an example. I guess I do sometimes ask, like, here's an example. I'll be in bed and I'll be already spanking a girl with what I would say is like maybe a 6 out of 10 force, whatever, 5 or 6 out of 10 forces, however you define that, like a medium level spanking. And I'll say, and of course I know she likes being spanked, but I'll ask, do you like being spanked? They always say yes. And then I'll say 1 to 10, how hard do you like being spanked? I actually have had a few girls tell me afterwards. This is when I started asking this. Actually, there's been a few times when girls said I spanked them a little bit too hard. Um, but that is, I was kind of right. But I've had a girl say me like afterwards, like, "Hey, you spanked me just a little bit too hard." It was like actually kind of starting to hurt. I was like, "Oh shit, I didn't know." And in the moment, they're like too shy to say something. So that way, it might be another example. Is I'll say, yeah, like, and when they tell me 7, 8, I generally know what that means, and you can kind of just tell by the way they moan and how wet they're getting. Um, I can estimate what a 7 level of spanking is pretty accurately, I guess.
I'm
So
gonna
just
head
to
over.
jump in real quick, like if I'm going to start going a little harder or more aggressive with a girl, I will typically uh, foreshadow that, right? I'll just ask even. I'll say, can I go harder? I mean, sometimes it's blatantly obvious that she wants me to go harder, but if I'm not sure, I'll typically ask, can I go a little bit harder? And it's usually yes, right? Because I'm usually not going super hard to start with. I typically ease women into sex. I don't hit them with porno style sex like right out of the bat. I think it's much more important to kind of connect to her energetically and demonstrate that I recognize her comfort levels as opposed to just breaching her comfort levels too quickly. So I typically will ask for consent. Can I go harder? And then I will also say to her, let me know if I go too hard. And usually I don't go too hard because I can sense where their comfort threshold is. So if I'm really feeling like being more dominant and aggressive, which many men are, interested in being a little more dominant and aggressive, if I'm pushing that boundary, I feel for where that borderline is, and she always knows that she has an out. And I've typically demonstrated throughout the interaction from meeting her all the way to sex that I can sense where her comfort threshold is. So in other ways, right? Like not just sexually, but just even conversationally, even in the way I make eye contact with her, even in the way that I will subcommunicate sexual energy and whatnot that's flowing through me. I know how to turn this stuff on and off like a valve or fade it in and out, a fader dial,
Mhm.
So that's my personal preference.
Yeah, I agree. Even I, like I said, I'll ask the girl, what level should I spank her at? And, ask certain things. And I definitely do agree that the only thing that I will say, but I guess this is like a necessary evil, it's just not as sexy if you have to ask. I don't care what Me Too generation, pro feminism, pro whatever women's rights bullshit we're in. Uh, Anytime you're asking permission in bed, it's just going to be a little bit less sexy. But you got to do it right because the alternative is you go too hard, and then that's bad. So
If I don't have to
Or
ask, I won't ask. Like sometimes
yeah,
it's blatantly obvious, but
yep.
you know, uh, I will
Better to feel
oftentimes
it out and not
ask, and
ask. Yeah,
there are a lot of women that will agree with what you're saying, that if you have to ask, it makes it less sexy, right? I have a
yep.
few kiss closes as well for guys that are really anxious. Like I don't know when to kiss the girl. I have some very low risk ways of going about the kiss where you do sort of ask for permission. You ask in a cool way though. You don't go, "Can I please kiss you?" Right? But there are some consensual ways to escalate. And even women have said, "Oh, you don't want to ask, that kills
Yeah.
the mood." And I'm like, I don't know. I have a pretty smooth way of asking. I think you'd be charmed. So
mm,
Like it's better to just
comes
like
down to the
start spanking
communication.
her and say, "How hard would you like to be spanked?" Better than like, "May I spank you?" Anyway, sorry, Ice.
Yeah, huge delay on my side. Goddamn. It comes down to communication. So, for example, dentist, touching your mouth all the time for like 2 fucking hours, 2 hour session, drilling your teeth and everything. let me know if it hurts. Like give a hand signal. Like whether it's going to the dentist or having sex, something like that. Some kind of communication. It doesn't have to be asking questions, oh, you like that, or cheesy shit like that, or it doesn't have to be that way. You can be much more just like Eric was saying. There are better ways to ask these kinds of things, but in general, there are better ways to communicate. So, like I don't see what guys are doing in the bedroom, but I imagine that a lot of, let's say, average or normal guys are saying things along the lines of, you like that? Is that too much? These kinds of super basic questions that would be like a
Yeah.
turnoff when there are much better ways to phrase those words. Yeah, I'm not a smooth
Well, and
talker,
it's
so
not just what you say too in the phrasing, not just what you're saying and the phrasing, sorry, the delay there. But your tonality,
Yep.
uh, let me know if I go too hard, is not as cool as, getting into her ear, like sneaking over her shoulder and in her ear, let me know if I go too hard, and so it's tonality. It's not just what you're saying too, but even the kink community, right, which I'm not in the kink community or BDSM community, but I know people that are, and communication is a huge thing in that community. There has to be really good communication between people that are participating in whatever the hell goes on in there that I'm not, uh you know it's not my thing. Okay, it's just not my thing. Or if it's the girl's thing, if she's really into it, fine. But it's not really my thing. But I know communication is very important in the kink community. So